I'm a little late to this anime, but it was one of the few I was looking forward to the season that it aired, which is saying a lot considering how the latter half of 2023 was really bad. The Demon Sword Master of Excalibur Academy was one of the few from its season whose synopsis interested me, and when I finally got around to watching it, I was kind of relieved. Its first episode was a very enjoyable time for me, and while I had a general idea of what I was getting myself into, I was still surprised by what this series was all about, since it had been about 2 months since I originally read about this anime. I just had a few details I knew about in my head, since I prefer to go in completely blind when I choose to binge something. I knew it was a spin on a reincarnation that leads into a magic academy, but it was nice to see that this kind of setup was different from what I've gotten used to in other series of a similar kind. With this setup, I'm used to seeing magic declining over the years while the protagonist remains with their original power, but in those other series, magic and technology just kinda stagnates. So, to put it shortly, this series was refreshing in a way, since it's a nice thing to see that the humans found another way to prosper with their decline in ability. One of the early things you'll notice is that the writing for this isn't the greatest, but it's got some charm to it that makes it a lot more enjoyable than you'd expect. It's nothing that bad, but there's a bit noticeably off here and there. It puts forth a lot of decent ideas, but there is quite a bit that wasn't really executed well. There's also some problems with pacing, as some things are resolved super quickly, while there will be at least one thing in this that you'll wish was shown the same courtesy. However, an interesting thing with its writing is done through the protagonist. Leonis is an important figure from the past, during a time so long ago that gods are battling amongst themselves alongside heroes and demon kings. This new age has come to him with quite a shock, as humanity is fine while the demons are nowhere to be seen. And that's even further enhanced with the addition of these new enemies that he's never seen before, called Voids. It's probably worth mentioning that I'm not really sure how I feel about the lore behind the Voids. I mean that in the sense that I don't entirely agree with it. I was reeled in by this anime with how it takes on Leonis' character arc from this persona that's seen as an absolute evil, as he turns into more of an actual hero throughout the length of the show. It's something that's been done to death with the whole popularity of the evil guy turning a new leaf, but the way this series goes about it makes it feel different in a way. It's not always done the best because of how it's written, but it legitimately feels like they tried doing something new with an age-old concept. It eventually ends up like how this path usually goes, but at least the journey there never felt like it got stale to me. Unfortunately, towards the end is where the anime really falls short. The writing is the worst in this section, which is a bit disappointing considering it has the most interesting parts of Leonis' character as it comes to its finale. There were also a few things at the end that were very forced in the writing that happens out of nowhere and does not logically make sense for how this happened. In other words, a poorly done Diabolus Ex Machina. It only happens twice, and that's honestly the worst that the series will ever throw at you. This series might not be anything groundbreaking, but it is simply a fun time. It might be something up your alley if you want to kill a few hours, but if you're looking for something with a bit more substance to it, you should look elsewhere. As much as I enjoyed this series, it doesn't really make much progress despite how many arcs the anime goes through. This might not have been anything of superior quality like some of the few good animes from 2023, but it's definitely not one I'll think poorly of. At least it wasn't like 90% of the anime I watched in the second half of that year. This one remained fun all the way through, even in the worst parts of it, so it never got boring.